At 79, Barry Gibb, the last surviving Bee Gee, has finally opened up about one of the most powerful yet mysterious partnerships in his entire career, his connection with Barbra Streisand. For decades, fans have speculated about what really went on behind the scenes of their collaboration, from the undeniable chemistry in their voices to the emotional tension that seemed to simmer beneath every note. Their 1980 album, Guilty, wasn't just a musical success, it was a cultural moment. The sight of Barbra and Barry side by side, both smiling on that iconic album cover, told the world they were more than just artists. They were a force of nature. But what few people knew was that their connection ran far deeper than just studio sessions. Now, after years of silence, Barry has finally spoken, revealing heartfelt truths about Barbra, their friendship, and the untold emotional bond that shaped some of the greatest songs in pop history. From the creative sparks that made Woman in Love an instant classic, to the personal challenges that nearly tore their collaboration apart, Barry's confession paints a raw, honest picture of two musical legends who understood each other in ways no one else could. This is not just a story about fame, or even love. It's about two artists at their peak, driven by passion, perfection, and a shared understanding of what it means to live for the music. It all began in the late 1970s, an era of shimmering disco balls, golden records, and a musical world still pulsing with the aftershocks of Saturday Night Fever. The Bee Gees had become untouchable. Their sound defined a generation, and Barry Gibb was its architect. But beneath the glittering success, Barry was searching for something new, something that would challenge him beyond the world of the dance floor. Across the country, Barbra Streisand was in her own golden age. Already a living legend, she had conquered Broadway, Hollywood, and the pop charts. Yet Barbra, too, was restless. Her voice had always been her power, but she wanted to explore something deeper, a sound that fused emotion with modernity, something that could bridge her theatrical background with the fresh pulse of pop. Their worlds collided when Barbra's team reached out to Barry with a proposal to produce and write her next album. For Barry, it was an unexpected call. "I couldn't believe it," he would later say. "Barbra Streisand wanted me to work with her. I thought, this is going to be something special." When they first met, it was pure creative electricity. Barry was struck by her precision. Every word, every note mattered. Barbra, on the other hand, was fascinated by his natural flow. His instinct for melody seemed effortless. Together they were opposites that somehow made perfect sense. As the sessions for Guilty began, something magical happened. Barry's warm, soulful harmonies blended seamlessly with Barbra's commanding vocals. The chemistry was immediate, not romantic, but something far more profound, mutual artistic respect. In the studio, they would exchange ideas for hours, sometimes disagreeing fiercely, but always returning to the same goal: perfection. Barry once recalled, "Barbra knew exactly what she wanted, but she always listened. She had this unbelievable intuition. She could feel when a song had heart." Barbra, too, would later admit, "Barry was unlike anyone I'd ever worked with. He had this emotional honesty that brought something new out of me." The result of that partnership was nothing short of historic. Guilty soared to the top of the charts, selling millions worldwide. Songs like Woman in Love, Run Wild, and the title track Guilty became timeless classics. But it wasn't just the success. It was the feeling behind the music that resonated with listeners everywhere. Behind the scenes, though, the intensity of their creative bond was undeniable. They pushed each other, challenged one another, sometimes to the point of frustration. Yet through it all, their admiration grew deeper. Barry would later admit that Barbra taught him discipline, while Barbra said Barry reminded her to feel again, to trust emotion over perfection. In the years that followed, Guilty would become one of the most successful collaborations in pop history, forever linking their names in musical legend. But for Barry, it was more than just another hit record. It was a turning point, a chapter where he discovered a kindred spirit in a woman whose strength matched his own passion. Little did anyone know, the bond they formed in those recording sessions would last for decades, one built not just on melody and fame, but on a shared understanding of what it truly means to give your heart to the music. The creation of Guilty wasn't just a triumph of sound. It was a collision of two powerful forces, each driven by perfection, pride, and passion. Inside the walls of the recording studio, where the outside world faded away, Barry Gibb and Barbra Streisand discovered that creating something timeless came at a price. From the very first recording session, sparks flew, and not always the kind that came from inspiration. Barbra had a reputation for knowing exactly what she wanted. Every note, every lyric, every breath mattered to her. Barry, on the other hand, worked instinctively. He believed in feeling the song, letting it unfold naturally. Their styles clashed, and at times that tension filled the room like electricity. There were moments, Barry later admitted, when we'd stop in the middle of a take and just stare at each other, not angry, but deeply challenged. She'd say, "No, that's not the sound," and I'd say, "Trust me, it is." But that's what made it work. Barbra, too, would later confess that Barry's creative spontaneity sometimes frustrated her, but it also fascinated her. "He had this freedom," she said. "He didn't care about rules, and that kind of energy was contagious." Outside the studio, the world was watching. The press speculated endlessly about the chemistry between them. Photos from their recording sessions, Barry's arm draped around Barbra, both smiling, fueled rumors of romance. But behind those smiles was a bond that was far more complex. They were two artists mirroring each other's vulnerabilities, both perfectionists hiding their insecurities behind talent and charisma. There were nights when Barry would leave the studio exhausted, unsure if he could live up to her expectations. And there were mornings when Barbra, listening to playback, wondered if she could meet his energy. They were equals, and that equality made their connection both beautiful and volatile. One night, during the recording of What Kind of Fool, things came to a head. After several takes, neither was satisfied. Frustration hung heavy in the air. Barry wanted to lean into emotion while Barbra wanted control. Finally, Barry said quietly, "Let's stop thinking and just feel it." Barbra hesitated, then nodded. The next take was magic. That was the one that ended up on the album. Raw, emotional, utterly human. When the album was finally released, it was a phenomenon. Guilty topped charts around the world, winning awards and cementing its place in pop history. But few knew that behind the success lay months of emotional storms, creative clashes, and mutual breakthroughs. In later interviews, Barry would reflect on that period not as a battle, but as a lesson in humility. "Barbra made me better," he said. "She taught me that perfection isn't about being right, it's about being real." And Barbra echoed the same sentiment, calling Barry a true artist, one who listens, one who feels. Their connection became something of a legend in itself, proof that when two artists collide, they can create something greater than either could alone. Yet, that deep connection also left scars. After the whirlwind of Guilty, both of them needed space. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. They had given everything to the music, and there was nothing left to give. Still, even as years passed and their paths diverged, neither ever forgot the fire they shared in that studio, a storm of emotion that gave birth to a masterpiece. For years after Guilty, Barry Gibb rarely spoke about his collaboration with Barbra Streisand. The album had become a global success, the songs immortalized, and the public had already created its own story, one of mutual admiration, unspoken affection, and artistic magic. But behind the nostalgia there was a truth Barry carried quietly, one that he would only share decades later, when time had softened old memories into reflection. In interviews through the years, Barry often smiled when Barbra's name came up, but his eyes carried a weight, as if her name brought back a mixture of pride and pain. Finally, in his late 70s, Barry decided to tell the story from his perspective, not the media's version, but the truth as he remembered it. "People thought we were in love," he said softly. And maybe in a way, We were, but not the kind of love everyone assumed. It was something deeper. Barbra made me feel music again. She reminded me that creation is supposed to hurt a little. That when you pour yourself into a song, it takes something out of you. He described how, during those recording sessions, Barbra saw parts of him that very few ever did. Beneath his confident stage persona, Barry had moments of self-doubt, times when he questioned whether his success was luck or real artistry. Barbra could see through that, he admitted. She didn't see the BG. She saw the man behind it all. And in turn, Barry saw something similar in Barbra. He saw the loneliness that often follows greatness, the cost of always being expected to be perfect. People think fame makes you untouchable, Barry said. But Barbra was human, deeply human. She carried her emotions like a weight and a gift at the same time. Over time, their connection grew into a friendship.